Swimming like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank.
Welcome back to another episode of the Shrimp Tank. We are coming to you virtually from Seattle and the great Pacific Northwest. If you want to learn how to start, grow, or run a successful business, this right here is the podcast for you. I call it the podcast of record. This is where street smarts and book smarts collide. Hello, I'm Dan Whedon, and my co-host today is James Alberson. Our guest is Jeff Kelly, and Jeff is the owner of Asset Lab Marketing and Butterflyly, based out of Renton. Butterflyly, and we got to learn about that name, is a fundraising strategy and digital marketing company serving nonprofits. They are a small yet very passionate team on a mission to help nonprofits grow in the face of unique fundraising challenges. And I bet, Jeff, we're going to welcome you and talk to you in just a minute. I bet there's some unique fundraising challenges over the past year and a half. Everyone, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. That's iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and YouTube. James, what do we always say?
We are ubiquitous.
We are ubiquitous. We come to you from about a dozen other cities, including the mothership in Atlanta, Boston, Boca Raton, and new in Columbus and Knoxville. And I understand New York City's on the docket as well. Now, before we bring on Jeff to get to learn more about him and both of his companies, hello there, James.
Dan, how are you?
You know, man, I'm doing well. I got a quick question for you as we get started this morning. Have you ever written something on an email, hit send, and I don't know, in about 3 seconds said, "Oh, shoot"?
I have in my younger days, a lot of those times, it was out of anger. So I learned never to send an email when you're upset. Type it, sleep on it. You'll probably change in the morning. But yeah, I've had some instances where I regretted sending out an email, certainly.
Well, and I think we all have, and this brings me to the plight of now former Las Vegas Raiders head coach John Gruden. I'm sure you and Jeff have heard what's going on. The interesting thing to me, James, is this, that aside from the fact, all the terrible, lewd, misogynistic, racist, all of the things that he said that were just terrible, while he did it from his own personal email, he was having a conversation with Bruce Allen, who was an employee at the time of the Washington football team, using the Washington football team's email. So they found all of this. They uncovered Gruden. They weren't even looking at Gruden. The NFL was looking at the football team, and they uncovered on the email server all of these things. So I guess what comes around. But James, you have clients in business. They all have email accounts. How many of your clients do you think have no idea what their employees are doing on the email?
Oh, probably 100%. They don't have any idea until it's too late.
Right.
And I've always said that whether it's an email communication or regular communication, you can only be as discreet as the person you're talking to or confiding in, or in this case, the method of communication you're using. Once it's out there, it's out there. And I can't believe that in this day and age, anybody would put anything in print that they can't afford to have come back on them. It's flabbergasting.
It is to me too. And you and I are probably about the same age. There was a time back in the 70s and 80s, nothing really, was something you said didn't necessarily last forever. Email is forever. Email is forever. So any of you business owners, be careful of what's going on your servers. But speaking about communications, we're going to talk today, James, to a guy who's all about communications and influencing, especially for nonprofits. Jeff Kelly, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's great to see you, Dan and James.
Good to
You
see
know,
you.
we're excited. We all love nonprofits, but before we get into what you're doing with Butterflyly, we just got to ask. That is a name that, for all, I guess, in the scheme of things, is memorable. What is Butterflyly, and what the heck are you guys doing and to help nonprofits?
So I get asked all the time about the name Butterflyly. And when it was time for us to create a brand name focused on nonprofits, my immediate go-to was to think about the butterfly effect. And you all know, I'm sure you all know the butterfly effect, right? A very small change in one place can create a huge change further down the line that you would never anticipate. And this is what nonprofits are working to create. They're working to create change along their mission and vision, and they're looking to just have that overwhelm the world, right? And they want to achieve their vision. As a young man, I was a scoutmaster of a Boy Scout troop, and I would see the impact of the interactions I would have with a young man, 12, 13, 14 years old. When they were 16, 17, 18 years old, I would see that coming back out of that young man. And so when it was time to come up with a name and a concept that would resonate with nonprofits, the butterfly effect was my go-to. And butterfly.com was taken. So my last name is Kelly. So we put an LY on the end of it and it became Butterflyly. And that domain name was available. So that's how the company got its name. What we do is we help nonprofits with their digital marketing and their fundraising strategy. So we're helping nonprofits solve problems on the marketing side where they're trying to reach their target donor. They're trying to build sponsor relationships. They're trying to reach people through a website or an email newsletter. We also help nonprofits on the revenue side grow revenue through great strategy that's informed by their donors, the people they're trying to reach, the relationship status of those people with the organization, the strategic goals of the organization and how fundraising can be activated to achieve those strategic goals. So we're working on the funding side. We're also working on the digital marketing side.
That's interesting, Jeff. I've known you for a few years. I know you specifically from Asset Lab, when Asset Lab Marketing, when you started that. Hopefully the company's still doing well. So I know you have expertise in this area. My question is, why the pivot to Butterflyly? What was the impetus for that? When did it happen? And tell us about that a little bit.
This is an interesting business story. So my wife and I started Asset Lab as a digital marketing company for small and medium businesses with the idea that we could help become the trusted advisor. And of course, we all hear the words trusted advisor. But many times in marketing, a company leaves their existing provider because they're unhappy or they feel ripped off or there wasn't transparency. And transparency is that key. So when we started Asset Lab, one of our company values was transparency. Another company value was community. And so these two fit actually really, really well from a value standpoint with a nonprofit looking for digital marketing services. So as Asset Lab as a business grew and grew, 30 to 50% of our incoming clients were nonprofits, not those target small and medium businesses. And we found that it was really because of who we were as owners and the clients we wanted and that values match. Zoom ahead to March 2020, and businesses were shutting down very, very quickly, right? The world was changing very, very quickly. And as we sought to, our goal internally in March 2020 was to figure out how to help each of our clients save at least one employee. How could that business generate one more employee's worth of revenue through the expertise we had? So we literally were going group by group through our clients, caterers and retail and nonprofit. When we got to nonprofits, it was very clear that our clients who were based on in-person fundraising for their funding source were in deep, deep trouble. Deep gamunga, as my dad used to say. And so what we did is we know digital marketing. So we know how to reach people online. We know how to think about relationships and grow relationships online. Let's call our nonprofits. Let's ask them if they know what they're going to do to transition from in-person to online. And if they don't, let's figure out how to help. So I started making those calls, and every call went like this. Hi, so yeah, you can't hold your in-person fundraisers. Do you know what you're going to do? No. Would you like help figuring it out so you can make some money this year? Yes. Next call. Do you know what you're going to do? No. Would you like help? Yes. So through that process of just calling our own clients, we were hired to provide fundraising strategy for a handful of them. That was in March and April. Come May and June, we were being referred because we'd already seen success in fundraising. And come July and August, we had inbound clients coming in looking for fundraising strategy, nonprofits looking for fundraising strategy. And when that happened, we knew that we should have started a nonprofit marketing and fundraising strategy business all that time before. So that's when Butterflyly became a thing, because we decided to make the pivot and focus our team's time more solely on nonprofits and their needs and success.
So Jeff, that's fascinating, and the whole butterfly effect. Now, as you are telling that story in my head, it's literally, and I think I heard you correctly. Had it not been for COVID-19, the pandemic, Butterflyly may not have ever butterflied.
Yep, we may never have become that butterfly. We
So,
had the values, but we needed the impetus, right? And that was really the moment that really showed us that we are actually really, really strong at what we do for nonprofits, and we should focus there.
So I've been a member of Rotary for 28 years almost, and I've worked with a lot of nonprofits through both them and through my business. What size of nonprofits do you work with? Do you have a kind of a lower level? What about some of the nonprofits who may be under $1 million in total funding, even from the start? Do you work with everybody? And if not, what is your niche?
We work with organizations through what I would consider, the very, very starting moments where an organization needs to be online with the website and a Facebook profile of some kind. They need a Google My Business listing. So on the digital marketing side, we provide service from the very first moments of that organization to be found online. When it comes to fundraising strategy, we're typically working with a nonprofit once it has established its first degree funding, right? I'm starting a nonprofit, and so I call my relatives and my best friends and my work peers, and can you give me some money? We want to get this thing going. So from a fundraising strategy standpoint, once an organization has achieved that level and has revenue coming in, that's a great time to start getting way, way better at fundraising. The top side of that, I would say, is it's typically a nonprofit that's doing somewhere between 50 and 20 million in annual revenue. Housing organizations are typically a little larger before they build out their full marketing team and their development teams. It's really when those teams are fully developed and built out in an organization is where we're no longer a great fit, because that's exactly what we would be providing. So we represent outsourcing and expertise in that digital marketing and fundraising side, typically from 100, 200,000 in revenue up to 15 to 20 million in revenue for a nonprofit.
So I like that you have that ideal space, identified and locked in. So fantastic. I'm curious, what's the greatest challenge that Butterflyly faces in working with nonprofits, have you found to be?
I think that one of the biggest challenges that our clients are facing is that they know there's money out there and they're not quite sure how to get their share of it. They have these great strategic goals. The board has decided that we're going to go achieve these next couple of things. But from an execution standpoint, where do you go double your revenue from as a nonprofit? This is one of the most common challenges that we help a nonprofit work through on the fundraising side, which is great. I want to double the revenue I'm getting from sponsorships, partnerships, donors. But what we're doing is going to take just an incredible amount more work to achieve that, right? As a business problem, the amount of money coming in and the amount of time and effort going in, they're linear, right? We're not growing in a scalable way. And so that's a key area where we can help an organization with. Another key area where we can really make a big difference in an organization is where there's not a very mature understanding for the different groups of donors. And I say donors, if we're thinking about a business context, these are customers, right? So we can apply these same concepts that we have in sales and development and relationship building to a donor as we can when we're talking about a potential customer. Donors have wants and needs, and a nonprofit is serving a want and need of that donor. Potential sponsors of an organization, potential grant funders, they have wants and needs just like we would be trying to solve on the business side. And so that's one of the areas where we can bring a lot of expertise, around how to understand donors and how to create value for those donors as a nonprofit so that they want to pour in more and more because that nonprofit is changing the world successfully.
All right. Well, in order for us to remain successful, we got to pay the bills, Jeff. So hang tight. We're going to take a short break to hear from today's spotlight sponsor. And when we come back with our guest, Jeff Kelly, for our Hot or Not section of the show, we're going to find out what Jeff thinks about Instagram. Don't walk away. We'll be right back with more of the Shrimp Tank.
Sandler Training specializes in ongoing training, coaching, and consulting to help companies increase their top and bottom line results. As a business owner or leader, are you completely frustrated with the lack of consistent performance from your salespeople? Concerned the team is not putting enough new strong opportunities in the pipeline? Disappointed at your team's inability to create value instead of selling on price? Or fed up with losing valuable margin due to unnecessary price discounting? If the end result of these and other challenges is a roller coaster ride of performance, consistently missed sales forecasts, or stagnant business growth, Sandler may be a fit for you. Sandler works with sales leaders and their sales team to refine their selling process, put key management processes in place, and improve execution to create sustained, improved performance and results. Check us out at www.toptier.sandler.com.
Hey, James, James, are you there?
Yeah, I forgot to unmute. You know, I didn't want any kind of background noise messing with the show.
I just love live. Don't you just love live episodes? It's awesome.
It's fantastic. It's fantastic. Man, that sounded like a great company. Oh, well, yeah, back to the Shrimp Tank. No, welcome back to the Shrimp Tank, where we interview the best and brightest CEOs and business leaders in the Puget Sound and beyond. Our guest today is Jeff Kelly with Butterflyly. And we have a next segment coming up, Hot or Not. Dang.
Hot or Not, Jeff, is where James and I are going to pepper you with questions about business, about your business and life, and maybe some social media, things like that. At the end, you're going to tell us whether it's hot or not and why or why not. So it's interesting, Jeff. I just watched the 60 Minutes with the Facebook whistleblower, and Instagram, of course, came up because Facebook owns Instagram. Well, one thing I do know is that there are a lot of users of Instagram, and it's becoming more and more of a business tool. So in your estimation and for your clients, especially the nonprofits, hot or not, Jeff, Instagram?
Instagram is smoking hot for any organization trying to target that person who likes social media but doesn't like Facebook. For an organization that's looking to build a connection with their audience, their potential donors, their potential beneficiaries, but they're looking to do that in a non-salesy way, a very natural way, where they're looking for brand exposure and solution exposure as opposed to a direct sales conversation. So very, very hot. But I would also say, for some organizations, it's very, very not, because their donors and their audience are not on social media. And so in general, very, very hot, but for some, complete fail, complete not.
Yeah, I imagine it's probably hard to get $1,000 check from a 12-year-old. Let's see, hot or not, let's stay with the social media line of questioning. Hot or not, responding to a negative comment online?
God, hot. But that response is not for the person who wrote the negative comment. That's what I want you to understand. It's for the 5,000 people who might see your response to that negative comment. And that can be a very difficult thing for people to understand. This is all about reviews and generating reviews and goodwill and trust online. So it's hot. It's a very important opportunity every time you have somebody upset or critiquing your work.
So along those lines, talking about publishing, and I think I know the answer to this, but I'd like you to expand on it. Hot or not, blogging for nonprofits?
Oh, complete not.
Oh, I was
Complete,
wrong.
complete not. Now, content. I love content. Content is huge in the digital marketing space right now. We can create all sorts of awesome content, but blogging. So what's blogging? Blogging is me feeling like every week I have to put out some interesting piece of commentary about me or us or what we're doing right now. That is dead. Don't do it. You're wasting your time. Create great content, but it's not about me. It's about the reader. And so what's interesting to the reader or to the audience, all of you listening right now, you're here because you're getting interesting content. If it was all about us all the time and just not really about you, you would not be here. So blogging, not. Content, hot.
All right. Well, there you go.
So,
So,
James, you mind if I ask a quick follow-up question here on that then?
Dan, I will allow you to do that.
Thank you. So that's interesting that you said that, Jeff, because I thought you were going to go with hot. Let me ask this. I love that's what's great about the show. How about the new mailings and newsletter mailings? Just about getting information out about what the nonprofit, and I know that's content, is newsletter distribution different in your mind than blogging?
Have you ever seen an infomercial on television?
Yes.
Okay. Infomercials make an incredible amount of money, right? Just a wild, like absurd amount of money comes in from infomercials. But the only people that respond to infomercials are people watching television. So do I like newsletters? Do I like mailed in the mail newsletters? I love them when the audience is an audience that's going to check their mail and read it.
Got it.
And I hate them in every other situation. You asked me about Instagram. Is it hot? That Instagram follower is probably not going to open that letter from you and read it, right? I know that from a demographic standpoint and an engagement standpoint. So the primary way that organizations make money in the United States is through direct mail, mailing a fundraising letter in the mail. That is by a large amount, the largest share of inbound fundraising revenue comes from direct mail in the United States. So I love the mail. I used to own a business where we sent handwritten messages on russet potatoes anonymously through the mail. Think about that, sending Uncle Bob a message on a russet potato. So I love the mail, but not when the audience isn't there. So it's got to be an audience alignment.
Good answer. I hope Uncle Bob enjoyed that potato.
Yeah.
Hot or not, storytelling in marketing. I think I know the answer to this, but
I'm trying to come up with a clever way to say not, but it is probably the hottest buzzword right now in marketing is the concept of storytelling. Mm-hmm. For a nonprofit, it is even more important because storytelling implies that we're going to get emotional. We're going to tell people an important story that brings them some sort of emotion. And that's what really activates donors and sponsors. And so storytelling is very important. And it has been the entire time. We're just now starting to use this storytelling word all the time to talk about it.
So, I want to ask you a little bit about demographics of donors. And I'm sure it depends wildly on the organization and who those donors are. I have to, though, think that strategically, people who are in their 20s and 30s, and let's just say early 40s, as they're starting to make more money, starting to become even more aware consciously of nonprofits and what passions they have and all of that, they are if they're not the donors of the now, they're certainly the donors of the future. I'm guessing in your comments about Instagram and all of that, those demographics have to be really strategized by nonprofits, because as you said, you have to pick what's going to be opened, whether it's an Instagram, whether it's an email. Does my question make sense? I know I kind of rambled on that, but does it make sense?
It does. The way you're going to reach any individual, different points in their lives, different cultures, different languages, different geographies, it's going to be different. And that demographic that's hot on Instagram and TikTok and the latest social media platform, you're going to reach them with your storytelling, to use the buzzword, in your digital marketing or in your fundraising. business or nonprofit, you're going to reach them in a different way than you're going to reach someone who has retired and is thinking about their legacy when it comes to giving and their interactions with a nonprofit. You're going to reach them in a completely different way. The younger generation is always the most difficult for a nonprofit to figure out from a fundraising standpoint, if the nonprofit is being run by people who are of a different generation, right? When a nonprofit is started by young people, they have no trouble raising money from young people because it's built in, like everybody understands each other from the first moment, right? So when we work fundraising strategy, this is a key aspect of what we're helping organizations figure out. Where are you getting funding from now? Who are those donors? Do we strategically need to be bringing in a new group? Is most of your money coming in from legacy giving at the end of someone's life? And we need to make sure that this organization is going to be here in another 100 years. And so we need to really start activating that younger crowd and finding a way to message and brand and really show a relationship that a younger person would want to have with a nonprofit. And it has changed so much since social media has heated up in the last 10 years. The way you work on building donor relationships and relationships with people in the nonprofit space is very, very different with the ability to interact directly through social media.
Interesting. So I'm going to change gears a little bit, actually, and ask, hot or not, remote learning. I think this may hit home personally with you. Remote learning, hot or not?
Remote learning, hot, but overrated. We're all doing it. We're all doing it. It works, but overrated.
We'll leave it at that, I guess.
So you mentioned that you founded both businesses with your wife. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And I don't know if she's sitting next to you or within earshot, or maybe
she just left the room, so we can talk about her.
Maybe she's watching us on her phone on our Facebook live stream.
Maybe I can't talk about her.
But hot or not, working with family.
Oh, it is a very unique challenge because your relationship with that person matters after 5 p.m. And what happens during the day, you need to, what I find is that I need to have an ability with my team, with the core team of the business. We need to have the ability to disagree and have productive disagreements about what we're doing with business and how we're helping clients to be able to come to good solutions. It's needed. But then when it's time for dinner, we need to be able to sit at the table with the kids and want to be together. And so it's a really unique challenge, but honestly, it's a much more caring and enjoyable position in my personal opinion than kind of the insensitivity of managing people in corporate and having partners in corporate, where at the end of the day, unless you've built a real deep friendship, you're willing to just walk away from that if somebody's underperforming. And I've done both. In my corporate career, hired 100 people or more and fired plenty of people who didn't work out and that whole thing. So it's harder, but it's also more enjoyable to have to be working with a partner who's a family member. And
it's got to be an awkward dinner at the end of the day.
Sometimes you got to eat dinner in different rooms. yeah, for sure.
Right. Okay. There's a reason I asked this question. So, hot or not, dangerous hobbies.
Dangerous hobbies are hot. I'm ready to jump out of an airplane and go parachuting, but I'd like my kids to be a little older first.
I mean, maybe tell us why you think I asked that question.
Oh, I don't know, but we just talked about having a business partner who is a family member, and that's kind of living dangerously. And now you're asking about dangerous hobbies. So,
well, maybe you don't do it anymore. I'm thinking of a specific insect. I think it's dangerous.
Insect, and all of her 50,000 friends and daughters. Yeah. So I'm a beekeeper, and that's what James is bringing up. And so dangerous hobbies apparently include beekeeping for James.
Far that I'm concerned.
Yeah. I mean, you get stung when you're a beekeeper, but you also get honey. So, I mean, it's kind of like having a business partner that's your wife.
All right.
I have a business partner,
Dan.
James, and I have Jeff. You probably now know, you've known this. I have a business partner that's also my wife. I'm going to leave that one alone, but I'm going to tell you, we had I think it was 2 or 3 episodes ago, David Lenhart, one of our guests is also a beekeeper. I'm going to have to connect you two so you can talk about bees and birds or birds and bees and all of that. But because right now we still got to pay the bills, we're going to take another short break to hear from our sponsors. And when we come back with our guest, Jeff Kelly, for our famous Plead the Fifth section of the show. And James, by the way, don't come back on mute. I just wanted to remind you, come back live.
Thank you.
Because we're going to ask Jeff about self-development. Don't walk away. We'll be right back with more of the Shrimp Tank.
Plead the Fifth is brought to you by our corporate sponsors: Ideal Life 360, Cornerstone Financial, First Underwriters Insurance, and the Kitsap Sun newspaper. Please visit our website at www.shrimptankpodcast.com/Seattle to learn more about these terrific companies. Now, back to the show.
All right, welcome back to the Shrimp Tank, where we interview the best and brightest CEOs and business leaders in the Puget Sound and beyond. I'm your co-host, James Albertson. Our guest today is Jeff Kelly with Asset Lab Marketing and Butterflyly. In our next segment, as Dan just mentioned, the world famous, it's news to me, Plead the Fifth.
Oh, James, it's not news to you. You know we were world famous, just like the russet potato. Now, so Jeff, we're going to turn up the heat a little bit with some of our questions. You can plead the fifth. If you don't want to answer one, I said, so if you want a fair catch, you can fair catch one, but that's it. So I mentioned something about self-development. So if your business and life partner were actually sitting there next to you and we asked her this question, how would she answer it? If we said, if there was one thing that Jeff could improve on in business as your business partner, what would that one thing be?
That one thing would be knowing when to call people before he makes some decisions. There have definitely been times where I've made decisions and taken actions before I've consulted people that would very much want to be consulted. And that would be it just happened, 4 weeks ago. And so, yeah, that would come out real top of the list. Make some more phone calls to the people who care before you haul ass in a new direction.
Oh man, been there and done that. So I think you're in good company, Jeff.
Check with your stakeholders. I hear you.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Jeff, Plead the Fifth. What nonprofit organization, in your opinion, has the best marketing strategy, and which one has the worst marketing strategy?
Oh. So the strategy I love is the strategy that appeals to me, of course, right? Mm-hmm. And so I resonate very well with the marketing from International Justice Mission. They're an organization who helps rescue people in very difficult circumstances in life. And so I'm a big fan of how they reach out in the storytelling and messaging, use that storytelling word again, the messaging they put out, and that I identify very, very well with that. An organization, there is an organization that I will not name who has spent probably 10 times more trying to get me to donate again than I ever gave them. And the reason I stopped being a donor is because there was no storytelling and messaging. But darn it, I get that piece of mail every 2.5 months saying, won't you please come back and save another, whatever it is that they're saving. So that's the one that I hate, is the one that doesn't understand that I'm not coming back and still pesters me.
You know what? And it's funny because I get those too. It's same thing. You did it once for whatever. It's been $10 and you're still on the list. At least on email, you can unsubscribe. Plead the fifth here, Jeff. Will in-person donation galas and auctions make a resounding comeback? Are they going to be mediocre, or are they going to go the way of the T-Rex?
They are going to make an amazing comeback. But goodness me, if you are an executive director or a development director, I need you to understand that the gala is one activity in your fundraising plan. It is not the activity in your fundraising plan. If you're going to the trouble of hiring all that, the space and the food and the entertainment and getting the items for an auction and just creating that story, and you only deliver it in the room, you have failed. Please understand that 95% of your donors will never come to your gala. Activate them.
All right, good answer. So plead the fifth. If you have the opportunity to relive your career life all over again, what would you do? What would you do over, or what would you do differently?
God, we don't have enough time. I
Does anything?
The list is
stand
huge.
out?
You know, I mean,
so-
some people roll into this question like, no, I made good decisions there. I would not change a single thing. No, I would change like 5 million things along the way. We don't have time for that. I would say that in business, when I made that transition from corporate technology companies into starting our own business, it would have been a great move to start by serving nonprofits on day one and not having gone down that path of being a more broad business marketing company. Choosing that nonprofit niche would have been a great move from the start. It was a reasonable decision to have done at the time, and that would have made our team so much stronger, so much sooner. Now, the other thing I would mention is that when we started Asset Lab, I wrote up a business plan to as an alternative to be a Bitcoin miner. And if we had gone down that path, we would not be speaking today. I would be on a beach with warm salt water and a kayak and other sorts of fun toys. But literally, the business plan is sitting in our Google Drive right there, along about 5 different business plans we wrote up. And this is the one we went with. And had we gone with that, it would have changed my life. So that is absolutely one of the decisions I would change.
Well, hey, I'll
right
tell
there.
you, now, if I hadn't have sold my Apple stock that I bought at $20 a share, I'd be on that same beach with you.
Yeah,
So
yeah, we'd be hanging out.
That's the Forrest Gump effect. Now, if he had Lieutenant Dan doing that for him, so he got that. So, but I got to push back, and this isn't my question because I do have a question. Because what about the butterfly effect, though? Would you be as effective now? Would you be doing it the same now had you not done Asset Lab first? Because as James asked that really good question, it made me think of the butterfly effect.
You know, one of our strengths as a company is that we understand businesses, right? We do marketing. We have done marketing for businesses for years. And now as we've pivoted very strongly toward nonprofit, we get to bring that very strong business acumen to our fundraising conversations and to our marketing conversations at nonprofits. And some leaders at nonprofits have what would be commonly considered a nonprofit mindset, right? And they haven't come up through that business side of life. And so they don't have some of that business acumen and the thinking about target audiences and the thinking about messaging and the thinking about, you know, the return on investment. And so, of course, our business would be providing a different type of service. And that might be one of the key areas where it would be different. Our ability to bring that business style acumen to fundraising and to marketing for a nonprofit is absolutely a strength that might not be in the same space if we had started here.
Right. So let me ask you my question, because we're asking all of our guests this year this same question. We're going to somehow compile them and see what came out. So I'm going to make you start a different company. Can't be anything like what you're doing now. As much as you love it, you have to start a company, Jeff, based on a hobby. What would that hobby be? What would that business be based on the hobby?
That business based on a hobby. I get stung too much to want to use bees, James. It would be building something. It would be a parts company for homeowners that want small tractors.
Oh,
some sort of part or gadget or widget company associated with small, homeowners, small property who want tractors.
I have to tell you that we haven't had that one yet. So that you've taken that.
There's a lot of challenges to having, a half acre and wanting to have a small tractor to be able to get more done in your day in your yard. There's a lot of difficulty in using the equipment that's available for tractors because it's either too big or it's too small.
Okay.
There you go. That would be a space where we could find something, I'm sure.
So Jeff, I don't know if this is technically a plead the fifth quality question, but I'm always curious because we get some good answers. What book would you recommend to our listeners? Have you read any books that kind of stand out for you that you recommend?
Yeah, I would say that there are two. One is The Goal by Elijah Goldratt, if I remember his last name correctly. It's about how a plant manager can take his plant from a situation where, they're manufacturing something and they're horrible at it. They always miss quality, they always miss schedule, and the plant's at risk of shutting down. How he takes some standard process, some simple processes, and creates a machine in that plant, not a physical machine, but like processes that they follow to be effective. It's something I've used over and over in business. The name of the book is The Goal. And I think that applies for me as a very procedural person, as a very business acumen kind of person. It applied when I was a software developer working in corporate. It's applied managing tech teams. It's applied managing my own business. And it applies to when thinking about fundraising at a nonprofit. It won't resonate with everybody, but the lessons in there and the process in that book are pretty amazing.
Fantastic. All right. Well, time flies when you're having fun. So we want to thank you for being our guest. But I know, given the things you've said, there's plenty more that the listeners might want to hear and find out about. There's obviously a nonprofit just sitting here waiting to double their fundraising efforts and reach out to you. How can they get more information?
If you want to track me down, it's very easy. You come to butterflyly.com, or you search Google for Butterflyly. It's butterfly with an extra LY. You can reach us on social, on LinkedIn, or on Facebook. And I would be happy to receive your phone calls, your direct messages, your emails, whatever it might be. If you're thinking about your marketing at a nonprofit or your fundraising and you need to make a level up in either of those areas.
Okay, sounds good. Well, don't forget to check out the butterfly effect with your wife this weekend or tonight, that sort of thing. And since I just plugged the movie on the air, Ashton, if you get any extra money from the resurgence of the movie, I think it's a great movie, you contact me. I want to cut. All righty. So with that, we're going to wrap up. Make sure you check out the replay on shrimptankpodcast.com/Seattle, or you can catch on wherever you find your podcasts, iHeart, Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you go. We are ubiquitous, as Dan likes to say. And don't forget to follow us on our social media pages, FYI, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. So Dan, why don't you take us out?
And because Instagram is hot, we're going to start doing more Instagram. So please follow us there. But of course, follow us on Facebook because we do our weekly live streams. Jeff, thank you for a great show today. James, as always, first, thank you and best of luck over the next 3 weeks. I know we're going down to the countdown for the election. So if you're in Renton, vote James Alberson. I can say that because I want to. It's my show. So vote for James. All right. We also want you to vote for us. Come back early and often to the Facebook page. That's where we live stream. Our next show will be on Wednesday, October the 20th, and our guest will be Steve Bean with True Benefits. My co-host for that show will be Linda Popke. But in the meantime, please be safe, be well, be prosperous, because until next week, the shrimp is back in the tank. So long.
I've been feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond.